bag down there probably.
Yeah, you want to go grab that and I'll see if I can get to the corner. It's right along the ditch, it's tied shut.
Okay. Ditches here. I didn't put my seatbelt on, so it's telling me I can't go more than 15 miles an hour. Anyways, we're picking up road ditches. So I'm gonna go pick up Dad and his bag of trash he's got. I've got one of his bags already and one of mine. I have another one down there at the corner, and Dad's coming up here with his own, so I'm gonna pick him up now.
Well, it's springtime here in Ohio. After the snow melts, we get to see all the ugly. I remember as a kid growing up, the commercial they used to show on TV was an Indian standing beside a river or a stream just polluted with bottles and cans and trash floating, bottles, bags, and a tear rolling down his face. And it's sad to see what happens to our country when people don't care enough to throw the trash where it belongs. Unfortunately, they use a lot of our land for a disposal site. We find anything from bags of baby diapers to who knows what all. You usually don't want to know what's in the bag. We've been doing this for a lot of years. I guess it all started when my dad was a charter member of the local Roadside club. That's a service-oriented club here for men in our community, and it's throughout Ohio and I think throughout the nation. The purpose of Roadside is to provide a service to their communities, and one of the things they do every year is the big spring cleanup. Each Roadside member is assigned some road frontage. My father-in-law lives on this farm here, and my dad lived over on another road, and so when I lived at home I helped clean up road over there, and when I moved over here, well, I helped my father-in-law, and we helped do this every year. So this is a task that nobody really enjoys. It has gotten better over the years. We have gotten better tooling. We used to just walk up and down the road with a bag and shove it in there. Well, it gets to your back bending over picking up all this stuff. So 3 years ago we got these handy devices here. I don't know if you folks ever heard of A.M. Leonard, but they got some really cool stuff.
You dropped a little bit of stuff.
I dropped my twine. Anyway, that thing right there is advertised as being able to pick up a penny, and you better believe it, you can pick up a penny with that. You can get the drinking straws, the bottle caps, baler twine, you can pick up gum wrappers. Those things are tremendous. So if picking up trash is your job, these are the guys to get. The other thing, 5 years ago I found this thing I called a man purse. It was in the ditch, and somebody had discarded it, and I thought, you know, that's pretty nice. So I took my trash and put it in there, and I've been using it ever since. It's like a great big satchel. Anyway, I just carry that along and fill it until it's full, and then take a bag, a feed bag, and shove it in there. So we recycle. I recycle what I can. Pretty nasty stuff. About the only thing I'll go for is aluminum. The rest of it's pretty nasty. But we'll bag that up. I don't know how many miles of frontage we have. We got a lot. So it's a nice day today. It's almost 70 degrees. It's a little bit muddy to be in the field yet, but this is one of those jobs you want to get done before it gets green and you can't find it. And you don't want to chop up those beer cans and put them in that feed, because that'll cut a cow's insides up for the inside out. And none of our magnets will pick up aluminum. So that's the worst thing, is the aluminum. Then of course the glass, if the ground's hard, you'll get flat tires. So that's what we're doing today. And another ace in the hole, last spring we got that little guy, that little Ranger there. And And that is just a pretty handy thing, and with the current price of gas approaching $5, that's a pretty nice thing to drive. The next thing would be a horse, I guess, but oats aren't cheap either, so I guess we'll continue on. We wanted to do a video toward the center of midway through April. They're going to have what they call Earth Day. So we want to do something about what we do here on the farm to try and be better stewards. The word everybody's throwing around right now is sustainability. So first of all, I want to kind of dispel or maybe discuss what that really means. If you look up sustainability on the internet, you'll get a definition that talks about maintaining, sustaining, continuity of something. It could be anything. In our instance, it's the farm. And farming is based on the earth, the wind, the water, and how we are good stewards of all those things. It talks about three aspects of sustainability. There's an economic or physical, there's a physical, there's an economic, and there's also a mental aspect of sustainability. I'm going to talk a little bit about those things. We want to start right here because it's kind of a windy day, and this guy is singing in the background. You can hear it. But about 14 years ago, we decided to put some money into alternative energy. And at the time, my oldest son had a Boy Scout troop leader, I guess, who was kind of getting into this thing. So they kind of put together this package, and we have both wind and solar, and we spent the same amount of money on both. Since then, this thing puked, and this company's went bankrupt, been bought out, went bankrupt, and right now are still not in existence. So the only parts available are what you can find in salvage. It quit turning on us, and we had a guy service it. There's a guy from Wind Turbines of Ohio. He came out and he worked on it, and when he left here, we didn't know if it was going to come back to life, but it did. And knock on wood, it is still turning, but someday it will quit. The problem is, this size turbine is no longer available. The smallest turbine available now is twice what this cost. If you see that pole right there, we cannot put a bigger turbine on that pole because it'll uproot it out of the ground. On a windy day, if you come back here and you sight off the corner of the building to the top of that pole, it probably moves 6 inches. There's that much flex in it when the wind blows real hard. That pole actually does bend a little bit. That's a very thick galvanized pole. And there's about a 6x8 block of concrete that anchors that into the ground, and then some great big bolts. And originally we had the grandiose scheme of adding more turbines, gone big time, but that's not going to happen. We have a meter for both the wind turbine and the solar panels. At the beginning of every month, I record what is generated. On average, we generate 300 kilowatts between the two. The amount of each varies with the seasons. There are times of the year, like right now, the days are relatively short, they're getting longer, so you're going to get more energy from the wind than you will the solar. When we get into the summer months, when it's daylight here till almost 10 o'clock at night, and the wind isn't so much, we will get a lot more solar than we do wind. So, and this is pretty true every year. You can track this. I have probably 12 years of data that you can plot out, and you can see it's consistent. Now, once in a while, you'll get a really wild weather event, like you might get a hurricane where we'll have sustained winds for maybe a couple days, and you might have something go totally off the charts. But historically, if you look back year after year, and I have every year on a page so you can track this, you'll see that it's pretty consistent. So that's one of the things that we've done. If I was to make a recommendation to you today, in our area here, it would probably be for solar. Because like I said, the wind turbines are cost prohibitive, and we do not have quite the wind we think we do that they have other places like Northwest Ohio and some places in the mountains of Pennsylvania. That's where the big guys really pay off. This is the brains of the operation here. We do not have storage batteries. The most efficient way to handle your electricity is to go grid tie. At which point in time you have to have an inverter to convert from DC, which is what's generated by your solar panels and your turbines, to AC, which is what we have in our buildings and throughout this farm. So we have to have an inverter. In addition to that, we had them put in meters. We have one here for the wind turbine. We have one over here for the solar panels. Now, to protect people online, another thing we have on the farm is we have a disconnect. If our power goes out, we have to be able to continue operating. We have to be able to water cows, milk cows, feed cows, cool milk, even if the power goes down. And sometimes it's only an hour or two, sometimes it can be for days. So we have our own PTO generator. Now, in order to have a generator and keep from hurting someone on the line with backfeeding electricity, you have to have a disconnect. So we have a disconnect at the pole for the tractor power generator, but you also have to have a disconnect here to protect people from your alternative energy going back the line to protect them from power surges. So that's what this lever here does. These are the disconnects to disconnect the wind turbine and the solar panels in case the power goes out. Two very important things to remember. Storage batteries are expensive. The best way to go is grid tie. And the other thing is you have to have a way to disconnect from the line so you don't accidentally electrocute someone, and no one wants to do something like that. But I've got a book here on the wall. First of every month, that's an easy way to remember it. First thing after I come back after breakfast, I come in here and I record both the solar and the wind readings, subtract from the previous month, and then I have that month's actual generation. And I've got data since we put these back in around, I don't know when it was.
I don't either.
Let's look and see. I can't remember when the first entry occurred. It looks like it was 2009. So these were put in 2009. So they've been in here a while. So we've logged quite a bit of data, and it's been pretty consistent year after year. Here we have a bird's eye view of the solar panels. They're on the south slope of that combine shed. We were just in there looking at the inverter and their meters. It's important to put those solar panels on a south-facing slope to capture the most sun. Another thing you have to have is a correct angle. Those brackets were made special, and I don't know what that number is, but you got to have the right number of degrees to capture the sun. So if you're putting in solar panels, you're going to want to put them on a south-facing roof. And some of the more elaborate systems actually track the sun, and they actually move throughout the day. When we built this parlor, we made some improvements energy-wise over the old parlor. We never had a pre-cooler or a thermistor in the old parlor. This is the thermistor. What the thermistor does is it takes the heat from the milk and raises the temperature of your water from ground temperature, which is approximately 50 degrees, to approximately 70 degrees, and then take it from 70 to 140, which is what is required for milk line sanitation. It's done with the water heater. So this saves a lot of energy in itself, because you're not heating the water from 50 to 140, you're heating it from 70 to 140. So this has been an energy saver. And then there's one more item on here a little bit farther in. I'll get a light for you so you can see a little bit better. We have a pre-cooler up here on the wall above Ben's head. We never had one of those in the old parlor either. What that does is it runs water through a radiator that helps take the temperature of the milk from the 102 cow temperature down. It doesn't take it completely to the 38 degrees that's required for storage, but it helps. And that's another thing that is used to help save some energy as well. You don't have to cool the milk as far. And then the warm water that leaves here goes to a watering trough, and the cows actually like warm water. After their milk, they're thirsty, and they do like warm water, believe it or not. So the water isn't wasted either. So now I'll go inside and see a little bit more. You can shut that right there. If you look back here in the ceiling, there's a piece of ADS tile back there. What that does is it connects the milking area to the area where the furnace is. In the wintertime, cows generate a lot of heat. And this building was built by K&M, and it was actually so tight that the furnace wouldn't run when we first got this. They told us the building was too tight, the furnace couldn't get enough air, and the CO2 sensor was shutting the furnace down. So we had to create we cut some holes in some doors for cold airflow. But one of the things we did is we take the cow heat, suck it through cold air into the furnace so we don't have to warm that really, really cold outside air up warm enough to make it nice to milk in here. And in the summertime, we don't want the cow heat going out there, making it extra hot where those compressors are, so we have a gate valve on the wall that we close. and that keeps the cow heat out here. This parlor is probably the nicest place on this farm to work on a cold day. It is very nice in here. Cows generate heat, it's well lit. Like I said, we have a furnace out there. We maintain temperature in here probably 50 to 60 degrees pretty consistently. Once in a while when you open the back doors, if there's a north wind, it'll get chilly for a few minutes until you shut the door. Very comfortable in here. One of the things that uses a lot of electricity on a dairy farm is lighting. And so we went through about a year ago and changed the last of our bulbs. We are now 100% LED. All these fluorescent bulbs we used to change in here have now been converted to LED fixtures. The big metal halide bulbs we had in our freestall barns, great big bulbs, those consumed a lot of energy. Those have been replaced with a corncob style LED bulb as well. So now every bulb on this farm, I think it might be a couple, that has all been changed to LEDs. And another thing that's nice about it is the life expectancy. Once in a while these would burn out, and you had to drag a big step ladder in here, get up here like a monkey and try and take these covers off and get the bulbs out. Knock on wood, these should last a long time. The screw-in LEDs have been lasting really well for us. So another energy savings, LEDs burn a lot less power, and they make a lot more light. This is a lot nicer, brighter, cleaner light than what we had before. And it just makes a really nice atmosphere. And I don't know if you guys, did you tell them about the mats on the floor before?
Yeah.
Okay, that's old news to you guys, so. Anyway.
But if not, there's a nice emblem on the floor there because
We're red tractor guys.
We're red tractor guys.
When I laid this floor out, my wife didn't know anything about it until it was too late. So that's tractor tracks and that's an IH, so. All right, we'll go to some more. Harvester guys out there, this is probably one of the only ones left known to exist. This is an International Harvester model number 8 front-mounted rake. This was made for about 2 years, I think, or 3, 73 to 75. If you look how this is made, and you'll see it this summer, we're going to video it running. But your bolster of your tractor, you drive right in here. There's bolts on the side and bolts from your weight box that hold this on the front. What this does is it picks up the windrow you're straddling and dumps it to the right in front of the, be it a forage harvester or in our case, a small square baler. So you can do 2 windrows in one pass without raking. It works pretty well. It could be a little wider in some situations, but what we bought it for primarily is we bale our straw and we cut our wheat high. We just take the heads and then we mow it to the ground for reasons we'll discuss at another time to get all the straw we can. Now, when we rake straw, it seems like you rake it, it gets rained on, and then you got a great big wet windrow of snot. So we prefer to rake and bale at the same time because really the straw is dead and dry. So it's just a matter of gathering. So this goes on the front of the tractor. It's pretty simple. Once you've done it a few times, there's one hydraulic hookup. There's a valve in here. When the rake comes up, it stops turning. There's a hydraulic motor on the other end that drives it. Or no, it's right here, it's on the front. When you pick it up, it stops turning. When it goes down, as soon as it contacts the ground, it shifts the valve and it starts to turn. So it's kind of neat. When you're at the end of the field and you pull in, you set it down, it starts to go. At the end of the field, you can pick it up and it stops. Originally, it came with like a sled runner out here, and it was supposed to slide on the ground. And I never really ran it that way. I thought that's a lot of drag on the whole thing. So this is an old uni hay head caster wheel we put on there, and it's much nicer. It rolls. Well, then we developed an issue with that side of it drooping a little bit. So we put another caster on the other end to bear the weight on that end just a little bit, so it glides over the ground. The next problem we had, and this is from International Harvester, this deflector is supposed to keep the chaff out of your radiator. Well, it does to a degree, but when you're raking dry, fluffy stuff like straw, there's a lot of chaff that rake picks up, and it was getting in the radiator. So this is another use of poly. We made this backing plate curved like the frame of the rake to keep the chaff down, and it does a pretty good job. You might have to stop once in a while to clean your radiator, but just think of the fuel savings and time savings this does for us. Nobody has to rake straw. You make half the passes, and you know, for us, that increases our efficiency, and that's what part of sustainability is to be a better steward of your resources. And this year, to price of diesel fuel what it is, it's going to add up in a hurry. So something like this, anytime you can cut down on trips will save you money. And you'll see it later when it's in the field.
Okay.
This is another way that we save time and fuel, is our double rake hitch. We've had these for a long time. There's actually been a rake or two worn out and replaced on this unit. The original one I made years ago, it wasn't hydraulic. I got the idea in a dream one night and I made it. It was a series of pins and stuff, but this is much nicer. It's hydraulic. This enables us to rake 2 singles or 1 double in one pass with a tractor. And we don't use a big tractor on here. It doesn't take much power to pull this. But this will save you a lot of fuel and a lot of time. We used to run, when we first got the second rake, we had 2 guys with 2 tractors, and it's like, boy, that's a lot of people doing something that one guy could do. But this has been a real time saver for us. Now, ideally, someday we would like to get a nice big rotary rake, but those are expensive. So for now, we're sticking with the old tried and true roller bars, but the hydraulic hitch is a real time and energy saver.
Oh, that'll kind of work.
What kind of work?
Yep.
Okay. What we're wanting to show you here is the difference in wagons. We bought the Kloss chopper probably going on 6 years ago, and it's a big machine, a tall machine. When we bought it, it came with a high arch spout, and we bought a reverse deflector, which was supposed to tuck it down and shoot it back in. Well, it really didn't work. It hit it and it died. So we got a flat spout from another farmer who was originally going to blow in the front of the wagon, decided to go over the top. Our aim was to get it to where we could hit the wagon. So that was better, but the wagons we were using at the time were like this wagon over here on the right. And I'm thinking they were a little less than 12 feet, like 11'6" at the roof. And the chopper sits at 12. So you're shooting, you have to shoot down. So you're not filling the back of the wagon completely to the roof. You're only filling a portion of your wagon. We had opportunity to buy these used wagons. These are Myers wagons. Let me back up a step. The Gale company no longer makes ag equipment also. So the reason to modify and put a lot of money in those wagons is not good. Resale, it just isn't there. The future of those wagons is pretty grim. The Myers company is still in business, and we bought these wagons used from a retired dairy farmer, and in current production you can still get extensions for these wagons. So we bought these wagons, added 12 inches, so now we're at 13 or slightly over 13 feet tall. And it makes a huge difference because now the chopper can actually fill the wagon all the way to the back. So when you bring a load in, now it's full. So you're handling less loads, less trips, less time. And we actually kept track this year. We have an 80-foot silo, and it took approximately 80 loads of corn silage with the previous wagons. This year we did it on a little over 60 loads with the bigger wagons. That's a considerable savings in time dragging up and down the driveway, hooking and unhooking, all those things that go along with it. So getting wagons that match your equipment is also important. These wagons were standing beside these gravity wagons. At one point in time, we had 7 of these, I'll call them little squeaker wagons. The biggest one was probably 275, maybe 300 bushels, down to, we had some 125 bushel wagons. And when you got a great big combine dumping in little wagons, you just don't get much done other than changing wagons. So in 2007, that was a really good year. Crop prices were up, inputs were still down. We made some changes, so we got rid of a whole bunch of little wagons and got these big guys. And that in itself has saved us a lot of time at grain harvest time. You don't have to handle as many wagons and less wagons to store. So another kind of efficiency that you can do on the farm is just sizing your equipment so it matches. And for us, that's important because it's Ben and I, just the two of us. So we have to find things that are efficient and work well together. So we're not waiting on each other.
Okay.
I want to talk about something a little different. We've been talking about the economics part of it, energy conservation, fuel conservation. Now I want to start to talk about something else in sustainability, and that is soil preservation and water quality. It's been a number of years ago, I don't remember the exact time, but a group of farmers here, local farmers, some friends of mine, we formed something called the Sugar Creek Partners. Our goal was, well, after someone saw an EPA mandate come across a desk down at the OERDC about what they were going to do and their goals for water quality and the number of years we had to get it done in, it was kind of scary, the numbers they wanted and the numbers that we currently had in our streams as far as nitrates, soil sediment, things like that that were in the water at that time. So a group of farmers came together, and we had a lot of people on that team. We had researchers from the OERDC, a lot of farmers, anybody that was going to be impacted with this or could impact what was happening in our streams. So we learned a lot about buffer strips by streams. Many miles of buffers were installed. That's nothing more than a setback from the stream. You're not tilling right up to the stream, where if a rain event happens and you might have put manure on that field or fertilizer on that field, it's going to leave and go immediately into the water. Now you have a grass buffer that helps stop sedimentation and things like that from occurring. Tree planting was done along the streams also to help shade and cool the water. If you cool the water, the bacteria will not grow as quickly in that cool water. There's just a lot of, and you encourage some aquatic life, like some fish and some microinvertebrates that grow in the water that need that cool water and that shaded atmosphere. A lot of things were done. That was many years ago. The funding kind of went away. So those of us that participated in the program are maintaining what we have, but we no longer meet, and I guess we can say we're educated to know what to do the right way now. So we don't need to have those educational meetings, but we still get together as friends and talk about things. One of the things we did when we bought this farm in 1997, there were some erosion concerns here. Up until that point in time, it was conventional tillage. If you look behind Ben here, kind of to the southwest, there's a hill down here that goes uphill quite a bit. There's a lot of roll to it. It comes down toward a stream. It was contoured strip, but it was still farmed conventionally. And without cover on the soil, the impact of a raindrop on that soil, there's nothing to protect it, and it's like an explosion. If you look under the microscope when rain hits dirt, there's an explosion that occurs. All those microscopic soil particles are now free. And you might not see it to the naked eye, but that is leaving. You're losing all that soil. So you need something to shield the impact of that raindrop from hitting that bare dirt. That's where your residue comes in. Back in the 70s, no-till was in its infancy. Reduced tillage came around with the chisel plows, and we started to learn that the moldboard plow wasn't our friend for two reasons. We were creating a zone of tillage where water couldn't get through. We were burying all the residue we needed for protection. Henceforth, the chisel plow came around. We were starting to leave some residue, which helped. And in many cases, you have to use a chisel plow. We have to use some form of tillage where we apply manure. We have found that out the hard way. We've tried the no-till and manure. Slugs love you for it, and they'll eat everything there is. And then eventually you will end up tilling that and burying that manure. So we do some tillage in manure. But a lot of our land on the rental ground, we don't till it at all. And the cover crop program, we learned by going to a PowerPoint presentation put on when we were on that water quality, having our water quality meetings. We met with a fellow by the name of David Brandt from down by Coshocton, and we learned a lot about cover crops, and that's what got us started. When we first started, I don't think we were doing it quite right. We've made a lot of changes since then, but we really like the cover crop program. For us, we grow three main crops: corn, soybeans, and wheat. Hay is in the rotation for our cows, but hay is in the rotation for a lot longer. The corn, beans, and wheat are rotated every year. The hay might be in there for 3 to 5 years, depending on how long the stand lasts. So we'll talk about the corn, beans, and wheat rotation. The cover crops are planted after the wheat is harvested. We have learned that by removing all the residue, mowing the straw to the ground, removing that, we get a better stand of cover crops. I don't know all the details, but for us, it works better if we no-till into that stubble. Another thing we do prior to those cover crops is we haul manure. We'll put manure on that ground. Don't seem to have a slug problem with them eating our cover crops yet. So we'll put that manure on, and right around the August 20th is the date that we shoot for. Somewhere preceding that, or maybe a little behind that, we try to have the straw bale. We go in there with paraquat, or some Roundup. We want to kill everything. We want it dead. We want it brown and crunchy with manure on it when we plant. And another thing we need is a little bit of moisture. We're planting in the top ½ inch, ¼ inch of ground with some of those very small seeds, and you need some moisture there to get it going. Sometimes it's too hard and too dry, and we'll wait on a rain. Get that ground a little bit soft, and then our planters do a really nice job. We have John Deere 750 drills. I'm not a big green guy, but I love that drill. Wonderful machine for cover cropping. It works good for us. We have two. We got a little one and a big one. I run the little one, he runs the big one. Depends on where they fit the best. But we get in there with two drills and we hammer it out. Usually in 2 days we can get all of our wheat ground planted. And that crop grows. Now David Brandt had a slogan one time. He said, if it goes to seed, it's a weed. And you can take that to the bank. You want to plant those cover crops in time that you get good vegetative growth before winter. But you don't want to have so much vegetation that it goes to seed, because now you have all those things to kill. There's anywhere between 9 and 11 things in our blend that we plant, all for various reasons. And so the last thing you want is 11 new things to have to kill in the spring to plant your crop. Now that's the nice thing about cover crops. A lot of that stuff dies through the winter. Probably the toughest thing to kill is the radish. That'll winter over through part of the winter, but when you get enough nights below 15 degrees, it'll finally zap them. And it has a smell that some people don't like. I kind of enjoy it. It's like the smell of natural gas. It's really the smell of money, because those guys are out there and they're making you money, but they do have a stink. Usually occurs right around Christmas time. So if you're in this area driving around, you smell something kind of funky, it's not manure and you can't put your finger on it, chances are it's the Four Winds Farms radishes rotting. And it's a common occurrence here for the last 6-7 years, and don't see it changing in the near future. But the cover crop program works well. In the spring, anything that's left that's living, it might be some crimson clover, maybe some hairy vetch, some of the other legumes that we put in there to put nitrogen in the soil, you might have to nuke those guys. But most of that stuff is dead and crunchy. Now I like to ride my dirt bike across the fields and hunt groundhogs, and you can never tell the difference until you drive across cover crop ground to believe what I'm saying. It is soft. It's like you're driving across a mattress and then you get on the concrete. You go into a field that was corn stalks that had no cover crops on it at all. It's just boom, boom, boom. It's hard. You get into that cover crop ground and it is so soft. It is the nicest thing you'll ever plant in. You know, you're tempted to go too fast because it feels so good, but it plants really nice and it's really soft dirt. Now, Dave Brandt talks about soil profile. When you actually dig down in the ground and look at what's going on, to be a believer in this, allow the roots go down in, loosen the soil, you see the mycorrhizae and all the activity in that soil is alive. It's black. You dig into a field that, say it was corn last year, brown as toast, you dig down in there, it's dead. You got to have living organisms there to provide the food for the bacteria to grow in your soil. Your bacteria are your friends. Your soil bacteria are actually making things available to the coming plant. You need to have earthworms in there, making the capillaries to get the water in. Now, you have to see some of the things that we have seen. We've been to some other schools. Phil Archuleta, I think I said that correctly. Look him up sometime. One of the United States soil agronomist, soil scientist, very smart man. You need to hear him talk about erosion and cover crops. I can't begin to tell you the wealth of knowledge that man has, but he had a rain simulator one night. We went to a school and we got to see actual rain hitting bare ground and cover crop ground and how it went through. And you know, you probably had that big rain after you planted, and it's like, gee, the crop looks like it's withering in a few days. It's all shriveled up. It's like, how is it shriveling up after getting an inch of rain? The problem is the rain never got in the ground. It hit the top of the ground, silted over, and ran off and washed away half your dirt. If you had had a cover crop on there and had the capillaries from the worms, the rain hits, it doesn't run off, and the crop thrives. You have to see it to believe it. I'm not a salesman. I know what works for us. So back to 1997, we bought this farm. I tend to digress and go down rabbit holes. Anyway, we bought this farm in 1997. There was conventional tillage. So one of the first things we did, there was funding available to make improvements to conservation improvements. So we put in waterways. We put in a lot of them. We've got one right over here to my right that goes up and back around there. probably about 500 yards. It comes down. There's a lot of fall from the top of that hill till it hits that creek down there. Now down there's something called a drop structure. It's a concrete barrier. What that does is when that river comes down through here, it hits that and slows it down and enters the stream. It doesn't wash the bank away. And in addition, there are tile underground. There's also the orange thing here, I guess I call it a hickam bottom. That's put in here, and there's also flood control over here. If that gets full, it can go through another tile. So this is all designed by people much smarter than me down there at Soil and Water, and this thing works. There's another one we can't see up behind the barn. It's 2,500 feet. It goes up to the woods, and there's another one over here and 3 back there. We put in, I'm thinking, almost 4,000 feet of waterways that spring. We became very familiar with rolling netting, pounding staples, and my kids were little and they were out there too, shoving staples and pounding staples. We spent lots of time out here, but they work. And the netting, you have to have the netting to hold the seed in the soil, but it made a believer out of me. This one here had 1.5 inches of rainfall on it the day after it is installed, and I thought, oh no, the seed and the fertilizer are all in the creek. But my excavator friend that helped me put it in said, be patient, Brian, it'll be fine. It greened up and grew. So I'm a believer in that stuff. That stuff really works. So, and then following the corn on the cover crop ground, we'll do soybeans. Now we experimented with no-till beans. I think some of our limited success was due to the fact of our closers on our drill. I didn't have the finger style closer, and I think we were having some issues with compaction. But we went to a what's it called? Vertical tillage system. Vertical tillage system, and that loosens up a couple 1.5 to 2 inches of soil on top. It knocks the stalks down, blends them with the soil. It leaves the soil pretty well covered with residue, but it also fluffs up the dirt so it dries out. And another one of our issues was with the closing was the dirt being too dry, too wet and too cold. So the vertical tillage will help dry the soil out, warm it up quicker, and then we plant into that. We've been having really good luck. Now it's not 100% no-till, but is about as close to that as you can get by doing any tillage. If we leave any tracks in your cornfield, it helps you kind of level those up a little bit. Our machine we built, we have a small one. They don't make anything less than 20-some feet, and we did not need anything that big for a lot of our contour strips, so we took a little disc and built our own. And we kind of copied it after the Case IH model. Went and measured the neighbors and came home and did some work on ours. So, and it does work pretty well. We like it. And then following the soybeans, we no-till wheat in that fall. And you saw that in some of our videos early on in the season there, where I'm chasing him around with the drill behind the combine. And we've had really good luck no-tilling wheat behind beans. There again, it's a timing thing. The ground has to be in the right shape, and you have to get her done. A couple years ago, it got cold and wet on us when our wheat didn't make it, some of it. But you need to have good growth before winter. And this year we have really good growth. Our wheat looks pretty nice for the stage that we're in. So that's the soil end of it. And the water end of it is, well, you put manure on ground that has cover crops on it, it holds it. If you have buffers next to your stream, that helps. You have your setback away from your stream. Another thing we do down at the dairy, we used to surface irrigate our liquid manure. We used a traveling gun system to spray it on top. Aluminum pipes. There's always a lot of fun laying those 150 pipes every spring and picking them up. And then we moldboard plowed that. Well, we made a change, I can't remember the exact year, it was early 2000s, to an injection system. Now we have the guy that comes in with a dragline system. We drag a hose and inject the manure. It cut down a lot on the odor, but the big savings is your nitrogen. Now this year, all you guys understand, the price of nitrogen is just through the roof. It's unbelievable what the bills are going to be this year for putting a crop in. And by injecting your manure, you capture a lot of the nitrogen you lose, that the stuff that you smell, the methane and ammonia, are leaving into the atmosphere. If you can inject that manure and capture that nitrogen, this year it's going to be a big savings to you. And another thing is to get over enough ground. Too many people try to put on too much. If you have the land base, if you can get down around 8,000 or 10,000 gallons an acre, that's plenty of liquid manure to supply your nitrogen needs on the average testing manure. And another thing is to test your manure so you know exactly what it has, so you know what you're applying. But that's kind of the soil, or the soil and water end of the sustainability. So to be sustainable, and the next thing is you need to think about your future generations. when you leave this farm, whether it be you turn it over to family, or if it be somebody totally new owner, not even of the family, wouldn't you like to be remembered as doing something that maintained or improved what you inherited or you purchased? And that means a lot to me, because, well, I like to think that when I leave here, I've left, if nothing of a memory, a legacy of improving something from what it was. You want to be remembered for doing the right thing, and that's the mental part of sustainability, is doing the right thing so there is a future. And the future of farming depends on us today and our kids and our kids' kids, and we have to train and learn from past mistakes and the educators out there that could give us the knowledge that we need to do a better job. Nobody does it perfect. I mean, every year we do something that I would do different, but I think that we're on the right track. I know a lot of it depends on your financial situation. We can't all go out there in one year and say, hey, I'm going to implement cover crops, I'm going to get a no-till planter and do it all once. It might have to be baby steps. It might be as simple as, you know, making some modifications to the planter you have. We have made modifications to ours to do a better job. But it's important that we look at sustainability on the farm side from those three aspects, from the economy, the economics of it, the physical side, you know, the water and the soil, and the mental side, you know, what people are learning from us, from watching us, because they're going up down this road all the time. There's a lot of cars go through here, and they're wanting, well, what's that guy spreading on that field? What's he spraying on that field? And they watch you, and you don't want your manure going in the creek when they're watching. So we've never been more under the microscope than we are now. With the media we have today, everything you do, everything you say is monitored, and you better believe people are watching us. And the media doesn't always portray the nice things, the good things. They're out there getting the stuff that's newsworthy, so we need to do the newsworthy thing and do something really good so that we get the right message to the people. So we just finished celebrating Easter last Sunday when we get a chance to offer our thanks for God giving his son to forgive us of our sins. This week we're celebrating Earth Day. Earth Day is important also. It's a time for us to celebrate and be thankful for this beautiful world that God gave us to live in. And we as farmers are stewards of this land, and it's very important that we take care of it. I want to read a little bit from Genesis chapter 2, verses 4 through 10 and 15. This is the account of the heavens and the earth when they were created, when the Lord God made the earth and the heavens, and no shrub of the field had yet appeared on the earth, and no plant of the field had yet sprung up, for the Lord God had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no man to work the ground. But streams came up from the earth and watered the whole surface of the ground. The Lord God formed the man from the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. Now the Lord God had planted a garden in the east, in Eden, and there he put the man he had formed. And the Lord God made all kinds of trees grow out of the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eye, good for food. In the middle of the garden were the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. A river watered the garden, flowed from Eden, and from there it was separated into the 4 headwaters. And now in verse 15, the commission. The Lord God took the man, put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. I like what it says in the Message, another version that's in my Bible. God took the man and set him down in the Garden of Eden to work the ground and keep it in order. That's our occupation, that's our job. And you don't have to be a farmer to do that. You can do that by just being a good steward, by recycling, taking care of the little patch of ground that you have. We are all given resources to take care of, and is our responsibility. So sustainability is more than just sustaining our own existence. Sustainability is maintaining it for future generations, and it is our responsibility, and we need to take it seriously. So if you have questions, I would like you to Google Dave Brandt or Ray Archuleta and listen to what they have to say. But we as farmers have an important job, and what we do does impact the world around us. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time.